Hermetic Journeys. I'm your host, Tony G. Hey, thanks for tuning in. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed, well, what are you waiting for? Anyway, it's good to see you again. Today is all about Emblem 24, but I just want to say one thing. The next video is going to be Emblem 25. We're halfway there. And it only took us, 3.5 years? But anyway, so we're getting there. So next video is going to be a really big video. Not that this video isn't exciting either. With the whole Hermetic Journeys team chiming in here, it's going to be really, really fun. So let's get to Emblem 24. Let's take a look at it. All right, so here we see a rather desperate scene. We've got what appears to be a dead man, a king actually, because he's got a crown there, and a wolf partaking of his flesh. He's eating the king. It's kind of spooky. And in the background, we have what appears to be the same wolf, but engulfed in flames, and the king is now alive and walking out of the fire. And we've got this beautiful Venice type of scenario back there. It's really a beautiful emblem. Anyway, so what's going on here? Well, let's take a look at the motto and see what the motto tells us. The motto says, "A wolf devoured the king, and being burned, restored him to life again." Wow, so, okay, we have some kind of resurrection going on here, apparently, right? And that takes place in a lot of alchemical allegory, right? A lot of these emblems and things like that. And of course, it is a nod to Christ, of course, and we'll get to all that in a little bit. So, all right, so we've got a resurrection going on here. The king is resurrected. That's kind of cool. But let's take a look and see what the epigram tells us. See what else it says here. The epigram says, "Take the rapacious wolf and let him feast his hungry stomach on the king deceased. Let Vulcan then blow up a fire that he, by the flames to ashes, may reduced be." All right, so Vulcan's back again. Remember him from Emblem, the previous emblem? "Repeat this method, which at length will bring life and a lion's courage to the king." So we must be looking at some form of alchemical experiment going on here, right? If we know that the king typically represents gold, right? He's the king, right? Well, the mystery character in here is the wolf, right? So what does the wolf represent? Well, I did a little research, of course, and I found that the wolf typically represents either stibnite, which is the ore from which antimony comes, or antimony, all right? So I found this little piece of information here. I'm going to read it to you. Lupus metallorum, which is Latin for wolf of metals, was used to purify gold, as the sulfur in the antimony sulfide bonds to the metals alloyed with the gold, and these form a slag which can be removed. The gold remains dissolved in the metallic antimony, which can be boiled off to leave the purified gold. Ah, so now this becomes a little clearer, right? So the wolf represents antimony, which is used to purify gold, who is the king, right? So we're starting to see the symbology going on here. Steve's going to delve into that far more than I will here, of course, because of Steve's experience. But I also wanted a little bit more. So I did find something else that helps really explain the emblem. And I think it's where Michael Meyer, or Count Michael, really got the inspiration for Emblem 24, okay? And it's from a work called The 12 Keys of Basil Valentine. It's a very famous alchemical work. The question is, who's Basil Valentine? Well, Basil Valentine was a monk who was a Hermetic philosopher and an alchemist. All right, and he is credited with writing several very important alchemical works like Azoth and things like that. However, it could just be a pseudonym for someone. We really don't know who Basil Valentine is. We're going with the monk. It's very romantic, don't you think? All right, so from this particular work, The 12 Keys of Basil Valentine, we find an excerpt that really explains what's going on in Emblem 24, at least on the surface, okay? And here it goes. "Take a fierce gray wolf, cast to him the body of the king, and when he has devoured it, burn him entirely in a great fire. By this process, the king will be liberated, and when it has been performed thrice, 3 times, the lion has overcome the wolf and will find nothing to devour in him. Thus, our body has been rendered fit for the first stage of our work." So let's unpack this a little bit. Okay, so now we definitely know that the wolf is antimony, and the king is gold, and of course the fire is the is the mechanism which creates this reaction when the antimony and the gold are combined to purify the gold, right? So why is there this obsession with purity, with purifying all of the things, the substances that go into the Philosopher's Stone, all right? Or tinctures or anything like that alchemists create? Well, everything's got to be pure because really it's like medicine, right? The Philosopher's Stone was known to be this universal panacea that would cure all disease. Well, you know, you go to the pharmacist, you buy medicine, you want to take something that's been contaminated or that's impure, right? You want to use the purest ingredient because it's going to cure you. Well, the same thing here. Okay, so you know all the elements, all of the substances that go into the Philosopher's Stone, the gold, the mercury, the antimony, whatever, it has to be purified because it is going to be this efficacious medicine. We want it to be in its purest form and its most efficacious, right? Its most potent form. There's the word. You know, the 66-year-old brain. That's what we want. So that's what's going on here. All right. So we have, going back to the image, to the emblem, we have the wolf representing antimony. He's devouring the king, who represents gold. And then the wolf is thrown into the fire in the alchemical experiment, the antimony. And then it is, 3 times it's burned to an ash, and out comes the purified gold. So seems like it's pretty simple, right? Or is it? Let's let my dear friends in the Hermetic Journeys team chime in on this. Take it away, folks.
Hello, my good friend Tony, and greetings to all your viewers. This Emblem 24 of the Atlanta Fugans is like all the others. It's quite cryptic and can be quite absurd and strange to the layman's understanding. The alchemists did tell us that they write for themselves and their own kind. They meant that they wanted their knowledge to be preserved, and they also knew the esoteric law of silence. In other words, we do not throw our pearls to pigs. Pigs only trample them into the mud, chew them all up, and spit them right back at you. So, to interpret this emblem, we must understand that the alchemical process is universal on all levels of being. So it is only natural that there will be a practical one as well as a psychological, inner, and spiritual one. A true alchemist can show us symbolically the 7 days of creation unfolding in his very vessels in his laboratory. So we will talk about that after the spiritual part. So on the inner and psychic or spiritual, psychological levels, there is always a sort of a lowering or a darkening of consciousness that befalls one whenever a dawning into a new light and regeneration of the soul is on the horizon of one's consciousness. In a beautiful painting entitled The Heart Unafraid by Leopold Postel, he most wonderfully demonstrates this. The initiate beholds a beautiful dawn of light over the dark mountains that challenge him to cross its dark shadows. Psychologically, we pass through our dark side as we contact our shadow, which in mystical terms is called the guardian at the threshold of the portal of the greater light. It wants to scare us away from our newfound self because it, our darkness, does not want to lose its power over us and be conquered by the daring hero. We see such events manifesting often with children as they fear the monster in the cupboard or under their bed. They need to face and conquer their fears and challenges in the growing up process. This is a natural process of our consciousness. We fear to change and we fear the unknown, and unconsciously we fear the responsibility that comes with this light, and we fear the loss of our innocence. This threshold is often allegorized by the presence of a dark demon, or a beast, hence our black wolf, if you will. Carl Jung has expressed this as meeting the shadow, and is generally met with fear and felt with great depression. Jung said that to confront someone with his shadow is to show him his own light. It is interesting to note that Winston Churchill himself often fell into deep depressions of darkness, which were intense and prolonged, which he called his black dog. He would always come out of it re-energized with a regenerated sense of being, making him see more clearly with true elevated purpose. This results because the dawning new light, which light is not yet fully seen, but very much felt by the old self, and who senses the manifestation of a light that is greater than its own little light. The ego interprets this as its impending death, not yet realizing that he or she is about to be regenerated into a new and reborn self. In our emblem, the king, of course, is the conscious self. Here, in our emblem, he is weak and dying, as he needs purification. The gray or black wolf eats him, and after that, the wolf is consumed by the fire. The fire represents the spiritual fire that converts, burns off dross, and purifies. This heat is intensified through the alchemical techniques of pranayamic breathing, concentration, visualization, aspiration, mystical zeal, love for the divine within us, meditation, and prayer. So in our emblem on the spiritual and inner alchemical process, the king, as our consciousness, passes through its purification into a regenerated and more glorious self than before. In inner alchemy, gold is the king, and gold and the sun were always synonymous with each other, and both represented light, consciousness, and perfection. But there is another explanation to this emblem, and it is a practical laboratory one. We cannot leave it out, because it is a very valid and legitimate explanation. The king in practical laboratory has always represented the precious metal gold. So, the emblem honestly reveals a process about the purification of gold. The alchemists in ancient times, they knew that for their medicines, their potable golds to be pure, it had to be pure gold, because any metal, toxic metals left in it would be toxic. And they couldn't just go out into the store and buy 99% gold. They had to purify it themselves. So the process was to mix stibnite or antimony with gold. Well, we must explain what stibnite is and what antimony is. Well, here you see a very beautiful piece of antimony. We call it antimony, but it is antimony trisulfide. Nicknamed, well, not nicknamed, but it's called stibnite. Stibnite is its mineral name. Antimony is its metallic name. Now, the wonderful thing about antimony is that it is neither metal nor mineral. It partakes of both. So it's really a metalloid. So it's a very special metal mineral, and it is the metal of the alchemists. Now, this stibnite can be very easily powdered. If I whack this with a hammer, it'll go into 1,000 pieces, and then I can very easily mortar it into a powder, which you will see here. You see, this is mortared into a powder. Now this will melt easily in a little crucible and under a Bunsen burner type. So the sulfur can very easily be purified from the original antimony, but we don't need to. In many of the experiments, we just use it as it is, and we still, for all intents and purposes, we call it antimony. So all I'm trying to say is let's not confuse stibnite and antimony as being different things. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing for the alchemists. Now, the sulfur can be purified from the antimony to give us a pure antimony that will look like silver and will give us what we call the regulus. The antimony, I almost dropped it, the antimony regulus. And you can see I made this one. You can see the star on the regulus, the starry regulus. It shows the crystalline level that we need, or the success in the work. Now, this antimony is used in other works. It's very famous in the Flamel dry path, whereby we use this, we powder this again. This too will crunch and easily powder. We mix it with gold and so on, and we elevate the gold to we make an amalgam of mercury with it. I shouldn't be talking about this because it's got nothing to do with our emblem, but just to let you know, through this amalgam, it allows us to, in a dry pad of Flamel, to elevate the gold to the Kabbalistic Sephirotic level of Tiferet, which gives us the resurrected gold used in making of the philosophers' gold, or stones. Resurrected gold, what they call. So alchemists always had a very good supply of antimony because we use it in a lot of our works. This I received from Bolivia, from the mines of Bolivia. This is stibnite, but in its ore format. This is a bit different than the beautiful crystalline one here. See, this one won't dirty my hands. But this one here is like ore. We call it pebbles. It's like a black rock. And this one is more toxic than the other one. And this is toxic. You see, it stains your fingers. But this too, if I smash it with a hammer, it'll go into many pieces, and I can powder it also. So, now this is the gray wolf. Our emblem reveals this. This is our gray wolf. And when you handle this, well, this is toxic. I should have been using gloves, but I'm making a video. I'll wash my hands. It's not that toxic. I mean, it's, not going to lick my fingers. Anyway, in the more simpler method of the purification revealed in Emblem 24, we simply use stibnite, the powdered form that I said. This process is the oldest method of precious metal purification from their ores or their alloys, and is known today as cupulation. This process is based on the simple principle that precious metals do not oxidize or react chemically in high temperatures. They can withstand high heat compared to other metals. Now, stibnite evaporates easily in high heat of our crucibles, of a simple crucible under a Bunsen burner. That is why we see in our emblem the wolf in flames. This emblem is very much the same as the one in the 12 keys of Basil Valentine. Gold remains because it can withstand much higher heat than the stibnite. But the stibnite will take with it the other metals. And this is why we see our king stepping out and walking easily away from the wolf that is in flames. So when gold is combined with antimony or stibnite, the melting temperature of gold drops. And it amalgamates easily with antimony by the process of thermal reduction, which means the heating to burn off the impurities. The antimony will bind with the other impurities in the gold, which can be silver, zinc, copper, iron, and others. These will form oxides and sulfide compounds and will evaporate away along with the antimony. The process can easily be done in an open crucible if our fire is hot enough to reach the melting temperatures of gold. So, in conclusion, by melting the gold with stibnite, which is our salt stage, and continuing to heat until only the gold remains, which is our coagula stage, we will receive a purified gold. By repeating the process 2 or 3 more times, we will have a very fine quality gold, at 24 carats perhaps. So in our emblem, the gray wolf eating the king is revealing a process of gold refinement by antimony, which is our stibnite and our gray wolf. So Tony, there you got it. That's my presentation for you, and I hope our viewers enjoyed it. All best to everyone. God bless.
Crime scene. Wonderful. What have we got here? We've got a dead king and a wolf standing over him with a bloody muzzle. Will the court convict? Details at 11. What says the crown? The crown will not take the stand, claiming divine right. What says the wolf? Wolf, you better lawyer up, and lucky for you, I have some evidence in your favor. Let's start with the anecdotal story of Gellert. Gellert is an ancient folk story told in Wales about the day Prince Llewellyn went on a raid. See, cattle raiding was a regular occurrence back in the day. He left his infant son behind in his tent with his dog Gellert to protect him, but he returns to find the tent collapsed and Gellert dripping in blood, much like the wolf in our emblem. Overcome by rage and fear, the prince ran his sword through Gellert's heart, killing him immediately. Only then did he become aware of the soft cries coming from under the collapsed tent. Lifting the cloth, he found his son, untouched, beside the dead body of the wolf the faithful Gellert had slain to keep the baby safe, as promised. So what was dog to the Celts? The dog, Cu, is seen as the guardian of the mysteries, stands at the thresholds as protector, the loyal companion through this life and the next, the psychopomp who guards and guides the souls of the dead through the darkness and waters of the unconscious, and, if the intent of that soul has been a good one, into the light of the realm of the divine. The title Cu, meaning dog, was an honor given to chiefs and warriors, heroes and champions like Cuchulainn, the dog of Cullen, and kings like Cunoglastus, Tawny Dog. Deerhound images are still seen on old gravestones and are found at the sites where shrines to healer gods once stood. Free of human complexities, Dog's loyalty and faithfulness remains innocent and selfless. Although the dog appears to be the hero, the wolf, Foil, was also held in high regard by the Celts. Hunter gods are often represented wearing wolf skins, and the wolf is honored as one of the cherished allies of the horned god Cernunnos on the Gunderstrap cauldron. Clans in Scotland and Ireland claim the wolves as their totems, and some personal names in Wales mean wolf. The wolf embodies the qualities of the dog, but retains a wildness that isn't found in its domestic relatives. The Celts were known to crossbreed dogs and wolves to produce hybrids that were used in battle. Both fierce and fiercely loyal, the wolf isn't afraid to cross normal boundaries. The wolf teaches us through experience how to trust ourselves and not fear or reject our shadow selves. You know, those parts of us that we may not yet know or understand. We need a touch of ferocity to claim our inner power, often found in those darkest of places. So, what's in the cards for this emblem? How do these pieces fit together? The characters all appear in the Waite-Smith Tarot. So let's lay out those cards and see what story they tell. The dog and wolf both appear in card 18, the moon. The moon is the shadow self of the sun, her light reflected, not direct. But the duality between the tame and the wild is only an illusion. We need to acknowledge both, and it will take the bravery of the wolf-dog hybrid to face the repressed shadows that influence our unconscious minds. It's only after having traveled the path of the moon and our shadows that we can find the source of our truth. The king appears almost in an identical pose to that of the king in card 13, Death. Now, Death doesn't bow to any claims of divine right and treats everyone equally. It's necessary to initiate change, evolution, and retain stability, even if it is unwelcomed. The card doesn't usually signal an actual death, but rather the end of one phase of life and the opening of another with new opportunities. A glance at the smaller image of the emblem tells the real story here. Finding a dripping muzzle isn't the same as finding a smoking gun or a bloody knife. Here, the wolf, like the dog, acts as a psychopomp, leading the good king through the dark night of the soul, a symbolic death, and into the fiery light of truth, beside the waters of the unconscious, where the ferryman's boat can be seen floating merrily along, bearing the soul toward rebirth. So, what says the jury? The jury finds the wolf innocent of all charges. The king is dead. Long live the king!
Wow, thank you, Maddie, for such a creative endeavor. Just absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. And Steve, thank you for taking us into your laboratory and showing us what antimony or antimony looks like and what you do to how to process it and everything. Really, really great. Thank you so very much. And now, last but certainly not and never least, Tomasz is going to enlighten us, of course, with his fascinating perspective on the body, mind, and the alchemical process. Take it away, Tomasz.
Greetings to all Hermetic Journeys viewers from tropical Germany. In Emblem 24, we throw the king in front of the wolf, which devours him. Then the fire burns the wolf, and the king rejuvenates. So in this video I'll present my interpretation, show all the supporting evidence, and will even call the videos of Roy Cohen for help to find the meaning of some cryptic sentences. My interpretation is the following. The king represents the body or the body-mind. I don't agree with Helena de Jong in that the king was the philosopher's stone, mostly because the stone is fire. It is awareness. In her translation, de Jong not only names the king as the son, but she also lists his 6 siblings. But the original Latin version doesn't contain that text in the parentheses. In the Arcana Arcanissima, Dr. Meyer writes that Apollo is the last god to be born, therefore the youngest. So the king is Apollo, which means the body in the stage of redness. But what is the wolf? I think that the wolf represents those irregular, patternless bodily sensations and contractions which sometimes appear when we let go. They can be very powerful and scary, and mostly localize around the internal parts of the torso.
Don't expect any result, because the result you will get is not the result you expect. You see, if you expect a result, you have this big sensation, and you expect for it to go away or to explode into some kind of whatever. Don't expect anything. Do your job. Your job is to listen to it, to let your body expand, to offer the body to the space in which it appears. Like it's out of your hands. You don't try to do anything.
So throwing the king in front of the wolf means letting go. And as Dr. Meyer wrote, do this time after time.
It is a multiplication of these moments of release that is going to break the ice. That which makes this letting go of the body efficient is to understand that it is instantaneous, that it doesn't take time. It's a decision you make and that's it.
Then it is also written that the wolf eats earth, as earth can be a metaphor for the body. Michael Mayer only mentions Apollo in relation to wolves, but in Greek mythology, not only Apollo but his sister Artemis was also connected to wolves. Leto gave birth to them on a floating island, as floating on water often represents a state of benevolent indifference in mythological stories. Then there is this weird sentence, "For in the tale of the wolf an unknown power of love is present, which is poured into the king, on account of which he regains his health and former figure to the joy of everybody." But what can the tale of the wolf refer to? In the book Is of Being, Jean Klein mentions at multiple places that these contractions in the body are actually fixed localized energy, and when the contractions dissolve, then the energy starts to flow freely. At the beginning, the king is the body that requires reconditioning, and at the end he is Apollo, or the body of energy.
Then when the body, which was like ice, becomes more like liquid, and merges with the space, then we call it the body of energy.
Or, as Jean Klein said, the body is only energy. The moment there is tension, the moment there is reaction, this energy becomes static, fixed as a form of defense. Awareness dissolves this fixation. So the fire is awareness. Then the text says, the wolf must come from colder regions, as cold makes the wolf more hungry and more savage. This sentence uses a similar metaphor as Francis Lucille, who compared the body to melting ice. Those cold areas of the body are the ones with more contractions and less transparency. They are mostly connected to past negative experiences. The wolf roams mountains and valleys in search of a prey, meaning it originates from the highs and lows of life, from the subject-object relationship. The wolf has to be drawn forth from caves, meaning the contractions are usually buried deep in the body and remain hidden. Then there are some sentences which are quite mysterious, like, "The death of the king is accelerated by his sadness." Or this citation from the Rosarium Philosophorum, "In alchemy there is a noble body which moves from master to master, in the beginning of which is misery and bitterness, but brings joy in the end." But luckily I came across the videos of Roy Cohen, a student of Francis Lucille, who had a liberating glimpse around 9 months ago. He is probably in the post-glimpse sadhana, which means the stage of blackness in alchemy. His videos explain that the previously mentioned misery has two main sources. The first is,
so the past week, or maybe the past 2 weeks, I've been in a state of immense terror. And there is fear, and maybe even above fear there is panic, but this is just terror. And terror about what? What is making me so afraid? It's really that the separate self has this idea that it's going to disappear because it doesn't understand what's going on, because what we actually are is not in time, and the mind is in time, and the mind can't understand awareness. So awareness is aware of the mind, but the mind doesn't know awareness, and that's it. It senses that it's over.
And the second source of the suffering is that the experience of the true self doesn't allow any form of suppression. Not only in the present, but it also continuously brings up suppressed experiences from the past.
But it's just that there is no filter anymore. There is no repression that is capable of happening. So whatever comes up has to come up fully and felt fully, or you just continue this circle of suffering.
And all these past negative experiences can hide in the body, which can be unpleasant or even scary, but they can't really hurt us.
They may seem threatening, but in fact, they are innocuous.
Paper tigers.
Paper tigers, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tomasz. That was your perspective concerning the body, mind, and these emblems and alchemy. It's so fascinating. I hope you guys find it as much fun as I do. And the video's just great. Thanks so much, my friend. Unfortunately, Nathan and Jake will not be able to contribute for this particular video, but I'm sure they will be in the future. We missed that perspective, Nathan. I want you to know that. And of course, we miss Jake. Anyway, thank you for watching. Remember, the next emblem is Emblem 25. We're halfway there, and that's going to be jam-packed with all kinds of fun stuff. And of course, informational as well. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Tomasz. And we will see you all soon. Emblem 25.